Okay, and I'm going to hide you. Okay, so hello, everyone. It's always a little bit exciting to get this going, so the room should be open. Hello, hello. Can you do me a favor and write in the chat box if you can hear me and if you are seeing me? That would be very helpful. Thank you. That would be really, really great. And welcome. Welcome for those of you who are already here. I'm so, so glad. So I'm really excited. We're going to have lots of great stuff for you tonight. All right. Request. Karen, hang on. Let me see. Okay, so you can see me. Do you have a question? There should be a place where you have a chat and you can just type something in there. So I'm hoping it is because you can hear me and see me. That would be great. And you have all kinds of options, and one of them is to write in the chat. So I'm hoping that you can write something in the chat box. And good evening. And if you can, at the same time, you could write into the chat box where you are from tonight, because I'm always super excited to see that people from all over the world can join for a webinar wherever we are, which I think is fantastic. So if you can just write into the chat a little hey, or if you can't hear me, then write that in the chat. Okay, I can't see. Ah, Mindy. It's so funny. Mindy's in Arizona and it's really hot. And today I had so many people typing in the group that they had a snow blizzard and things like that. All right. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So I assume that you are all doing perfectly fine and that you can all hear me okay and see me okay. So I'm welcoming you so much to this webinar, to this kickoff for the challenge. It's going to be so exciting. And today I'm going to explain exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to explain and show you exactly what I teach my clients as to why their sleep is being sabotaged and also what food has to do with it. And at the same time, it's going to be so logical why you're going to lose weight at the same time, which I think is magical. All right, so let me just see if everything is okay. Let me just check in the Facebook group to see whether everything is okay. Chat is disabled. Oh, everybody, how do I enable that? Enable chat box. Does it work now? Hopefully it works now. Oh, thank you guys so much for sending me text messages on Facebook. That's really helpful. Okay, so I enabled chat box. I hope that is working. Let's see. It's open. Yes, thank you, Donovan. Thank you. All right, so let's get this show off the road. I know your time is precious. My time is precious. So let's get this going. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use a PowerPoint, but sometimes I'm going to switch screens because I want to talk to you. All right, and I want to see you. Well, I can't really see you, but I want you to see me because I want you to have a face in front of you sometimes, except for slides. So let's get going. Screen share, application, boom. So hopefully you will see what I have prepared for you tonight, and it's on a PDF. So welcome to the challenge, 5 days to more sleep and less weight. Let me just change it up for me a little bit. Okay, hang on. All right, so who am I to talk to you about sleep and about weight loss? I'm Hansen. I am from Luxembourg, the only Grand Duchy in the world that I love. And I am trained in the holistic science of sleep method. And I'm also a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. It's quite a handful. So I just call that FDN. And I'm a people person. And why do I say that? It's because if you look at the bottom, I really like to complete the missing link. I really like to talk to people. I like to connect to people in person. And I'm not just about the sleep science. I'm really also about helping the person and whatever is happening. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also a mom to my little daughter, Millie. She's nearly 3. I'm multilingual, fun fact. So I speak Luxembourgish, Lutzebourgisch, Moyen Allgäu, and German, French, English, and a tad of Spanish. So if you really make me, I'll be okay. And I do have Colombian origins, so it should be natural, but it's really not. It was one of my worst subjects in schools. And I'm a health nut. That hasn't always been that way. It changed quite recently, but I adore anything that is holistic health and traditional health as well, but anything that can interest me. So that's why I'm also doing the a class to become a Heilpraktiker or a naturopath. So that's me. And what are we going to do today? So today we are going to look at what food is and what the food and sleep connection is. And here are our main topics. We are going to look at cortisol, hormones, inflammation, and what they have to do with 2 a.m. wake ups. I'm going to fill you in on what leaky gut is. Some of you will know, some of you don't. And if you don't, it's going to change your world. And I'm also going to touch on the topic of food allergies versus food sensitivities, because this is all about eating. And I want you to know what is happening and in which case you should maybe pay attention to your body and maybe shift directions. All right. So let's start with number 1. And I had to change it to PDF because my PowerPoint wouldn't show up the way I wanted to. So imagine this flying in, but very nicely. So let's look at the first factor, which is cortisol. So let me start off that I always talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what happens is a stress cascade. So let me talk about what is normal, what we want to see, and where we start to get into a little bit of trouble. Okay. Jenny, yes, I am recording this. So this is going to go out. If you have to go a little bit earlier, then you will get this. No worries. Oh, thank you, Sheila. I just saw your comment. Thank you. You shouldn't see behind. You shouldn't look behind the camera. There's like Armageddon going on, but thanks. All right. So cortisol. Okay, let me start. Cortisol is something that's actually really good. It's a hormone that we have that is what makes us wake up in the morning. It's giving us energy. It's an anti-inflammatory, which is, for example, why you have mosquito bites and they are fine during the day. And then at nighttime, they suddenly start to itch like crazy. That's because cortisol is making place for other hormones to go to sleep, because if you have too much of cortisol, you are going to be wired. And that's what our body does to help us, really. So it's really going back to, tigers and mammoths and things. And whenever we had to fight or flight, and still do, we'd get a rush of cortisol. And I call it the superhuman hormone because it makes our vision sharper. It trains our body to be highly efficient physically, so we can run faster and things like that. So it's good stuff. And usually if you have a little bit of it, then, or if that just happens occasionally, then you can get a spike and it will drift back down and you'll be completely fine again. So if we have a little bit of stress, that's totally okay. But if we start to have chronic stress, which most of us unfortunately have, then your body is, telling your adrenal glands, which is where cortisol is produced, to give cortisol, give cortisol, give cortisol. And what happens is that you start to have a dysregulation, and that's when all the other hormones are affected and when you start to have symptoms. So I'm going to explain this to you in a way that it will hopefully make sense. And this is one of my favorite graphics in the whole wide world. And the reason is that this is from FDN, and it made so much sense to me when I first saw this. I hope you can still see my screen. This made so much sense to me when I first saw this. So let's take a look. If you see this green box, it's green, it says adaptation and homeostasis. So that's when you are all chilled out, when you are nice on a beach with your pina colada, and you've been doing that for a long time, and you're all zen and everything is good. Then you are in homeostasis. And if we were to test your cortisol levels, they would be on this graphic between 23 and 42, right? So on the left, you can see that. You have the line, and then you have the bottom of the box is 23 and the top is 42. So you would be all good. And then if you have a stressful situation, your cortisol levels would go up, and you can see they would at one point go into that yellow box. And that's still fine, that's still okay. And it could all even be because you have a really cool experience like bungee jumping or anything like that, So it's really cool. And the levels on how high those levels can be are really individual. So that really depends on character, genetics, all kinds of different things. Now, if you take a look on the top, you can see that the line is suddenly dotted. And the reason for that is that if you have chronic stress for a long time, your cortisol levels will be high. But how high? It really depends. And most important of all, how long is also very individual. So some people could go on with years and years of chronic stress, and their levels would stay up there somewhere. And for others, this could just be a couple of weeks. So it's very, very individual. And what happens that at some point, your body kind of let's say, gets used to it, and your hormone levels your cortisol will drop down, but not because you are going into homeostasis, think umbrella and mojito again, but because your body is just dysregulated. And we used to talk about adrenal fatigue, but in the meantime, it's really been shown that your body is regulating things differently. And what happens is that at some point, your cortisol levels on a test will be exactly the same as during homeostasis, but when you completely feel differently. So you will feel exhausted, and you will feel, not in shape. You will have all kinds of stuff going on, even though your test results might be completely normal. And that's why I'm always saying, how do you actually feel? And if somebody tells you your levels are in range, that doesn't mean that they are in a good range. It could really mean that you are on a decline. And then afterwards, your cortisol levels actually go into deficiency. And that's when we talk about an exhaustion phase, which is where everything starts to kind of collapse. You have a failed adaptation, and worst case scenario, which is not going to happen very quickly, but once you die, you don't have any cortisol anymore. But seriously, don't worry about that. It's a little bit tragic. But for example, with my last test, I was, I think my cortisol levels were at 17, so not very good. So I have to coach my body back up again in order to get back up the slope and then into homeostasis again. But I wanted to show this to you so that you can understand what this hormone is and what can happen and why it is affecting you, right? And why sometimes your levels seem to be fine, but that its levels don't always speak all the truth, and or you have to look a little bit further what is happening, and also that this is taking place over a long time usually. So it's not something that happens from one day to the next. So why do we care? Well, what happens next? The cascade begins. So this looks very confusing, and it's actually very simple. And I can promise you, I was so bad in chemistry. I was the worst. And this actually really made sense to me. So what is happening is that your brain, which you can imagine at the very top of this kind of tree, your brain is telling the hormone pregnenolone what to do, kind of, or pregnenolone has different kind of things that it has to do. Let's put it very simple. So you can see pregnenolone is the first one in this green box. And from it, you have two main branches. One is going to the left and I hope you don't have that it's not mirroring my screen, but it's going towards progesterone and then towards cortisol and eventually cortisone. And on the other hand, it's going to dehydroepiandrosterone, and I probably totally butchered that. We call that DHEA. And from there, you have testosterone and your estrogen levels. So what happens if you need cortisol all the time? Well, your pregnenolone pushes most of what it has towards progesterone and cortisol, but it starts to neglect your DHEA and your steroid hormones. All right. And that's when we have all kinds of trouble occurring. Okay. Heather, yes, the slides will be recorded and everything will be available. I actually didn't think of making the slides available, but I can. Yeah, I'm absolutely can. All right. So that's what's happening. And I want to show you a little bit what the consequences of that can be. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you will recognize yourselves in some of those things. Right. So I hope this wasn't too confusing, but basically pregnenolone is your master hormone and it should be nicely balanced, feeding your progesterone and cortisol and your steroid hormones like testosterone and estrogens equally. But when you have too much cortisol, it's going to borrow some of it from testosterone and estrogen and so forth. And so they're going to be neglected. And if you do that over a long time, you will have an imbalance and all kinds of consequences. So let's take a look at some of those. For example, let's say for your estrogen, if you start to have a deficiency, looky here, you start to have sleep disturbances, apart from a lot of other nice things. So fun things like hot flashes and vaginal dryness is one of my favorite, or incontinence, or, so just take a look at them. But there's a lot of things that can happen. And if you have too much of it because there's an imbalance, things that like water retention can happen, or weight gain in your hips, which is what we are focusing on. So, and all kinds of different things. So it's important to just keep it in mind. I'm not saying that, oh, I was in a bad mood today, so I have an excess of estrogen. But if you have those things chronically, and if those are things that you notice, just keep in mind that this could be one of the reasons why. Your progesterone, if you don't have enough, looky here, again, sleep disturbances are right there. If you have too much of it, it's sleepiness, so you will feel tired all the time. So as you can see, there's really a lot going on if you have this over a prolonged time. Testosterone, again, you have sleep problems. Also foggy thinking, fatigue, that would make perfect sense if you're someone who's tired all the time, but you can't sleep. So that makes perfect sense there. And then, of course, melatonin. And melatonin is, and I used to call it the sleep hormone, even though it's more of a sleep regulating hormone. So it's not meant to be helping you to fall asleep, but it's meant to help you with your circadian rhythm. So you can use it when you are traveling through time zones to beat jet lag or things like that. Or if you have an issue with your circadian rhythm, which is your biological clock, which is telling you when to be tired and when to wake up. But apart from that, don't really use it to fall asleep. That's not really what it's meant to do. So it's obviously linked to sleep. So sleep issues, falling or staying asleep, fatigue, poor concentration. And if you have too much of it, you're really tired all the time. And it can be from chronic stress, blood sugar levels, pesticides, herbicides, and so forth. So a lot of different things. All right. So that was a lot, but I think it makes sense. And it's interesting to see what is happening and how everything is affected. All right. So that's what's happening with your cortisol and when you are under constant stress. And I want to tell you that stress can, of course, be emotional, but it can also be biomechanical, which is when your body has physical stress, which could be after an accident. It could be because of wrong posture. And I'm super excited because we have a couple of our experts who are going to talk about this and are going to help you to reduce that, because that's not my expertise. So you have biomechanical stress, or you can have biochemical stress. And that is what is happening inside of your body and that we don't always know about. And so today I want to fill you in on what is happening inside and what you can do about it. And so, why does your gut matter? And let's take a look inside. So this changed my world once I was introduced to this and how it happened and what it did. So let me introduce you to your mucosal barrier. And your mucosal barrier is the wall that you have inside of your gut and in your intestines mostly. So, I used to think it's just a tube, but this tube is actually not as smooth as I thought it would be. So actually, if you would look at it very, very closely, that wall is lined with those little finger-like kind of things, and we call them the villi, right? So you have these kind of little fingers inside of your wall, and inside of those, you have lots of cells that help you to filter your nutrients and your molecules. And then inside, so as you can see right at the edge, where you see a close-up of what's going on inside, all of that's filtered through is going into our lymphatic system and also into our bloodstream. So it's really important that those villi are in tip-top shape. And what is happening is that you can't really see it on this picture. You will see it in the next one, but they are not as smooth either. So if you had another close look, you would see that these villi are a little bit hairy. So they have a lot of, and we call that brush border. So they have microvilli on top of them. And what's the reason for that is that it's a filter. So what they do is they catch the molecules that come into your digestive tract. And that's not just food, it's drinks, it's also what comes in through your skin. All of that is going through and is being filtered through those microvilli. And what happens when you have a lot of stress is that those microvilli can either become blunt or they can even die off and you start to have an atrophy, which means that it's not there anymore. It's slowly dying off. Now, why do we care? Well, we care because if they aren't there, they can't filter and absorb the nutrients, the vitamins, all the things we need. So we know that vitamin D, magnesium, all of those things are important for our sleep. All of these things are important so that our cells get nourished, that they can work. If you have a super healthy diet and you feel tired all the time, then it might be because you have a mucosal barrier problem and the nutrients aren't actually going into your bloodstream because your mucosal barrier is damaged. Your villi aren't working the way that they should. And so that's the reason why sleep can definitely be affected and why your nutrition can be in difficulty because you basically don't absorb the way that you should. And that is also true for fats, of course. So they aren't broken down the way they should be. You don't absorb what you should, and you don't filter out what you shouldn't. So that's why this has to be in tip-top shape in order to give your body exactly what it needs, in order to break down what it needs and to, detoxify and excrement anything that it doesn't, instead of having it on your hips. And then next, which I adore, is leaky gut. And I don't wish it on anyone, but so many people have it. And it's a horrible name, but I want to explain to you what it basically is. So you have these little green things, and those are you can see the little villi on top. And then those pink things are the microvilli, so the little hairs. So you have, for example, food particles that are coming along, and they should be absorbed by the little hairy things, which are the microvilli. They would go through your cells, be digested through there, or be filtered through. And then whatever is supposed to go through is going into your bloodstream, and your immune cells will also filter out what is happening and what isn't. So your immune system is just underneath, and actually 80% of your immune system is in your gut, right? So in a perfect world, you filter everything out, and everything that isn't supposed to be there is just filtered out, basically. And between those, you can see that we call tight junctions. So there's nothing that's not supposed to go through there is not going to go through. So if you have a big molecule that's not supposed to go into your bloodstream in that shape, it's not allowed through. Now, what happens though is that with chronic stress, you first of all, you have your microvilli that start to, die off and become blunt, and those tight junctions, they start to loosen up. And so what happens is that you have stuff like molecules that are usually too big to go through. Suddenly they kind of manage to glide through those junctions that aren't as tight anymore as they should. And so you have a compromised permeability, and they go into your bloodstream. So why is that a problem? Well, let's suppose you eat something and a molecule that would have been normal is actually not going to be broken down the way it should. And what happens is that your immune system will go, oh, I haven't seen you here before. I don't recognize you. So slap, I'm going to tag you as an enemy of the state. Let's put it that way. And then next time you are eating the same food, your immune system, again, the molecule is going to go through, and your immune system will say, now I recognize you. I don't want you here. And it's going to attack because, it has remembered this thing as an enemy. And that is how we develop food sensitivities, food allergies, and in worst case scenario, autoimmune diseases. So as you can see, it's super, 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 super important to have a healthy gut and, a great mucosal barrier and a gut that is nice and impermeable and doesn't have any holes in them. All right. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense and wasn't too much, but it really, really helps to understand why all of this is so important when we talk about sleep. All right, let me just quickly have a break. Let me just see what's coming up. Yes, let me just quickly come back to you and see if you have any questions. All right. Do these hormones work the same for men and women? Yes, a lot of them do. You have some differences with the testosterone. But fatigue is the same, but there are some differences with testosterone levels because they're supposed to be higher in men than in women anyway. But I could look it up for you straight away. I don't know all of them from the top of my head. But yes, a lot of them are exactly the same. The only one where you differ would be testosterone, where there are a couple of differences that are a little bit more, how shall I say, poignant than others. All right, Susan, love that review of all that. I know. So you have to know that Susan is a GP. So she's seen all of that in a lot of detail, and I'm just doing this in a very easy way. All right. I love that. Yeah. All right. I'm glad. Thanks, Jenny. I love that visual. It's so helpful when I work with my clients to understand what is going on. So I hope that this has helped you to understand a little bit why foods are so important and why your health is so important and why your sleep might be affected without you making the immediate link. Sometimes, yes, it's the stress that we have, but very often it's because there is another underlying reason. And so what does this have to do with 2 a.m. wake-ups, for example? Well, if you have an inflammation like that, your liver is going to kick in around 2 or 3 a.m. to detoxify. It's something that, when we are asleep, your body is doing all kinds of other things that it needs to do. And I like to call it housekeeping. So it's repairing itself, it's detoxifying. And what happens when the liver kicks in, your immune system very often kicks in as well. And when it's fighting, let's put it that way, in a very simple way, you have an inflammation. And what happens? Do you remember? Cortisol is an anti-inflammatory. It's going to try to help. It's going to raise its levels, and it's going to give you energy. But you're not supposed to have energy, strictly speaking, at 2 a.m. in the morning. And so that's what's happening when, for example, you wake up and you are fully wired and you don't know why. And then if you have a lot going on, you stress about that too, which is adding another stressor. And so your cortisol is going higher even further. And it's just a perfect storm not to go back to sleep. So the reason why I'm telling you this is that I want you to understand that sometimes there are things that we can't control, and sometimes there are things that we just don't know. We just don't know about them, and it's not your fault, right? So that's why things. Why do the villi die off with chronic stress? That's a good question. Claire, biology is not my forte. It's not my forte either, but I hope that I managed to explain it in a way that you could understand. It's basically like a brick wall where you have mortar, and when you don't take care of it, that mortar starts to have little holes and you get things through that shouldn't. And on the other side of the wall, you have your immune system, and you don't want to have that working at night, basically. But why the villi die off with chronic stress, I'm not even sure. I can imagine that it might have to do with pH levels that start to rise. And in that case, they would probably damage the villi. One thing I do know is that your secretory immunoglobulin, which is your main hormone in your immune system, is being reduced by chronic stress as well. Why? I don't know, but it reduces it. And I guess that because of that, you just have more damage and more particles coming in that shouldn't. And that is the reason why. But I'm not really sure. I'm not entirely sure. How do you know if you have leaky gut? Is there a test? Yes. No. Or do you have symptoms? Well, there are tests. And the one that I do is that my clients have a sugary drink. They get something to drink which has 2 molecules in it. It has one large molecule and one small molecule. And what happens is that they drink it and then they pee. And then in the pee, we take a look at how much of each of these molecules is still in there. So the small molecule is because we want it to go through the microvilli and through the cell. So if we can see that there's too much of it, we can see that it hasn't been filtered through. And the large molecule is because we don't want to see much of that in our pee afterwards, because that would tell us that the tight junctions are actually too loose and that it has managed to go through. So that's one example of how you test it. And that you do with a simple urine test. So that's how you can see it. And then you can also notice, like what I said, for example, if you take a lot of supplements, if you have a perfect diet, but you still feel tired all the time, or if you can see that you have a chronic vitamin deficiency, that's something that you could link to leaky gut, for example. If you manage that you have more and more foods that you start to react to, that could also be a sign to leaky gut. And it's something that I test, like mucosal barrier and leaky gut is something that I always like to test because it's just so revealing and it has such a huge, huge impact on everything. Okay, so let's go a little bit more into the foods, because over the next days, I'm going to give you delicious recipes, and I want you to be aware of, just be mindful about what you're eating and how you react to it. So let me go back to sharing. Ta-da. All right. So foods can be a stressor too. And I want to talk about the difference between food allergies and food sensitivities. So how to distinguish the two. Now, first of all, if you have an allergy, it usually comes on suddenly, and it's usually like you have a bam on reaction, like something will happen. You will not be able to ignore it. Even a small food can trigger it, and it happens every time you eat the food, and it can even be life-threatening. So especially if you know someone who has nut allergy or shellfish allergies, lots of different things, you know that if those people eat that kind of food, there will be trouble. A food sensitivity is something that starts to gradually build up. And sometimes it only happens when you eat a lot of it. So you have lactose, for example, which is one of the most frequent ones, or gluten. And, sometimes if you just have a little drop of milk, it's fine. But if you have a milkshake where you combine it with a lot of cream, then you start to have a reaction. Sometimes it only happens if you eat the food often. So for example, for me, I used to be a complete freak about pineapples, and I used to eat just a little, then more and more and more. And after a while, I really couldn't eat them anymore. As soon as I put them in the mouth, everything would just like, my whole mouth would start to become acid. So it's really weird. So I just stopped. But it's not life-threatening. Different symptoms. So, and this is what I really, really want you to be wary of. And I didn't format this very nicely, but when a food irritates your stomach or your body can't properly digest it, that's an intolerance. For example, gas, cramps, and bloating. People, please listen to me. If you have these things, they aren't normal. So be watchful. You shouldn't feel bloated after a meal. You shouldn't have gas, and you shouldn't have cramps. Heartburn, headaches, and sometimes you don't make the connection, which is why my clients always have a food log and how they feel. So sometimes we make connections that we wouldn't have otherwise. Irritability or nervousness, full stop. And there I should have made a break. Apologies. But for example, I don't know if you watched my video, but yesterday I did a video about me. Hang on, let me talk to you for a second here. Stop. Okay. I did a video yesterday because on Monday and on Wednesday, I cheated. I ate unhealthily. I had some French fries, and yesterday I had a full-blown Italian pasta cream, delicious meal. But both times I had a crash, like a fatigue crash you wouldn't believe. And I had a lot of gas. Not nice. And I was wary of it because when I was on holiday in Tenerife a couple of weeks ago, I threw out my healthy diet and I went back to my standard diet, which was a lot of refined carbohydrates and so on. And you do get a lot of pizza and pasta and stuff like that. And I was exhausted. I was so tired by the end of the week. And it wasn't because I was on holiday, but it was because I had focused on eating things that actually my body reacted to in a negative way. And for me, it was fatigue, and I was bloated and everything, which is not nice in a bikini. And so this week, when I had my 2 cheat days, and you should always have a cheat day. I don't condemn you for cheating, but for me, I just realized that I crashed like nobody's business in the afternoon, and I had so much work to do. But when I eat healthily, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, this is never going to be enough. But it always is, and I never have a crash in the afternoon. So I always thought it was a myth. Even though I'm an evangelist, this has really taught me a lesson. So that's just goes to show, if you eat something next week and you notice that you have a reaction to that even if it's just constipation or bloating or gas, take a note. Just make a note in your head. And if it happens over and over again, that's a food sensitivity, which means that it creates a reaction in your body and that it is a stressor for your body. So if you want to have your leaky gut healed and your mucosal barrier healed, then just avoid that. And that's what food sensitivity tests are for too. And there are different ones. There are some that are a lot more detailed, where they are called an MRT test. Usually we are used to IgG tests, which are not quite as efficient, but they don't need as much blood or any blood at all. So it's like they just need tiny driplets, whereas the other ones need a full-blown blood draw. So that's just a little bit of information, but it's just something that I want to throw out there. How long does it take to repair a leaky gut? It takes a while. So you don't get that from one day to the next. So when I do a protocol with my clients, I use usually 90 days, so 3 months, where we pay very close attention to what is happening, and with a lot of different ways. Okay, and you can have different products that help you, but lifestyle changes and diet changes are always key. All right, let's go back. Share. All right, now allergies. Hang on. Are really a lot stronger. Your immune system is full-blown attacking the food, and you really have rashes, hives, itchy skin, shortness of breath, chest pain, sudden drop in blood pressure and so forth, and really go, and you have to call the emergency number, whatever it is in your country, immediately. It's a really, really serious condition. All right. Something else I want to talk to you about very quickly is your metabolic type. And having a diet that is corresponding to your metabolic type is helping you so much in losing weight. It's not even funny. So we have 4 systems that we differentiate. Some people are sympathetic. Some people are parasympathetic. And then subcategories, you can be a fast oxidizer or a slow oxidizer. Sympathetic are those people that are just naturally more nervous. They are stressed a little bit quicker. They are moving all the time. Just as people that tend to be a little bit more stressed in general. And parasympathetic are those that are very chill. Nothing can really get them out of their groove. And then, of course, you have people who are 50-50. I should have written that down as well. And then you have fast oxidizers who take their food and they tend to digest very quickly. And then slow oxidizers who digest more slowly. So it's really like fast oxidizers. You turn on if you had like a fire, you would have it on full on speed, and slow oxidizers are more like the coal, who have I don't even know how to, I don't even know what I'm saying, but they do this on a very low flame. And then obviously the different categories are that you could be sympathetic and a fast oxidizer, or you could be sympathetic and a slow oxidizer, or you could be sympathetic and parasympathetic and you could be a fast oxidizer, or you could be sympathetic and parasympathetic and be a slow oxidizer. So there are different ways of how you digest, and there's different ways of eating. So if you're someone who has issues with, for example, refined carbohydrates, which you find in pasta, for example, then you would try to avoid that, and you would have a more protein-rich diet. And so all of these things are things that you can find out with, maybe I should give you that. You know what? I'm going to send you a diet check sheet that will help you to figure out which metabolic type you are. I just wrote down the note. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to send you that. Or you could always take a test, which is what I do with my clients. It's always included. And it will figure out through questions about your genetics, about your morphology. So if you're rather large boned or if you're very lanky, and then it will make suggestions. So it will let you know what kind of proteins you should eat, what you should avoid, what kind of carbohydrates, what you should avoid, what kind of oils and fats, and so forth. And so it will basically give you this kind of plan, and it will also give you recipes and all kinds of things that is just done for you to figure out. And I use that with the official metabolic typing platform. So why am I telling you this? Well, the challenge, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so here's what's going to happen. Over the next days, today, after the webinar, you are going to get an email with all the recipes, with the ebook that is also going to explain gut health to you again, plus the shopping list, right? I'm giving you 2 days to empty your fridge and to go shopping. So on Sunday, we have our official day 1 with our recipes and our dinners and our lunches and our breakfast. So on Sunday morning at 10 a.m., you are going to get an email with a summary of the recipes of that day, plus a video, hilarious video, by the way, of me cooking lunch and dinner so that you can see that even an idiot can do it. And you're also going to get a sleep hygiene prompt. So it's going to be a little task to implement. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go into the group, into the Facebook group, and you can be active however way you want. You can post a picture. You can just comment on how the recipes worked for you. You can ask questions. And what you do is you go into the group and you do a hashtag day 1 or day 2 or day 3. And those of you who consistently do that over the 5 days can be winners of, well, 10 of you can win my book. 3 of you will receive my book plus my 7-day skinny sleep program, which is similar to the 5-day challenge that we're taking today, but an additional 7 days with brand new recipes, shopping list, everything included. So everything you're getting today, but for another 7 days. And one of you is going to have the chance to win a personalized metabolic typing test. So you will get that plan that you've seen, this one, plus recipes and stuff. So it's really worth it to go into the group every day and to participate and just do the hashtag. You don't just need to do the hashtag once per day. But in the end, I'll have my beautiful assistant, Jessica, who's going to count who has been participating every day, and you are going to be part of the giveaway. Secondly, the accountability. I will check on you whether you applied the sleep prompt, right? So, and I will tell you good night and I will tell you good morning. So whatever the sleep prompt is, I'm going to ask you, did you do it? So just check in and just say, okay, I'm doing the sleep prompt now. And then the next day I'm going to check up on you and ask you if you actually did it. And then finally, we're going to have fun, post pictures of your meals, exchange tips, encourage each other. That's what these challenges are for. It's the tribe. It's the force of the group that is going to make this a complete success for you. And that's it. Let's have fun. And I'm going to switch back to you so that you can ask me any questions. All right. From what I know, there's no available test you could do at a doctor's or in a lab, so it's all about for leaky gut. Susan, I do the sugar molecule test, and it's works pretty well. So, I struggle with pasta. Okay, Claire. Do you mean like when you eat it that you feel bloated afterwards? Like, do you have any reactions to that? What I did, I switched over to gluten-free pasta, and I have to say it's really good. Like, I'm very fortunate, and there's a shop not too far from where I live where they have quite a range of gluten-free pasta, and so I switched over to that, and that has helped me. Denny, you're very welcome. I just mustn't forget to send you the diet check sheet, but it's going to help you a lot. So, but everyone, it's going to be really cool if you really participate, and it's going to be so much fun. Oh no, you can't do it in Luxembourg. No, and I'm not testing in Luxembourg actually. All the labs that I use are international, so I'm not doing it here. All right. Do you guys have any other questions? So the important bit is that you're going to get everything today, like in half an hour. But what did I want to say? Yes. So you have 2 days. You have today, tomorrow, so until Sunday to empty your fridge and to go grocery shopping. You have the shopping list, so you can just print that out and you take that with you. And it's divided into fruit, vegetables, everything. So all good to go. And then something I would suggest is that on Sunday morning, you put on some party music and you start cutting up the vegetables, or some of them. So for example, all the cucumbers, all the tomatoes, they can all be cut up and diced up. And you just put them into glass containers and put them in the fridge. So that's done. That is a lot of time saved. I also give you some alternatives sometimes that you can use. And if something's not available, just post in the group and I will give you an alternative to that. So on Sunday is our official day 1 in the group. So that's our official active day. And we have our 5 amazing guest experts in the group every day sharing their knowledge. So we have Karen, who's going to share an R&R yoga routine with you. Donovan is going to show you how you can create your own workout. Denny is going to keep you motivated until the end and beyond. We have Elsa Wien. I'm not sure how to pronounce it actually, but she is amazing, and she's going to help you with the inner voices that might tell you, oh, this is not going to work for me anyway. So she's going to kick that right to the curb. We have Donna, who's going to talk about diabetes too. So there's lots, and it's amazing. So really go and join the Facebook group, because you're going to miss out on a lot if you're not a part of this. Claire, yes, I reacted within the hour. I know pasta is a bad one. I love it, but I'm actually really happy that I figured it out and that I found an alternative to that. And now I don't really crave it. And when people used to say that, I don't crave it anymore. I didn't used to believe them, but now I actually do. All right. For some reason, I can't see the last message that's in the group. Hang on, let me check. I can't see the message above Karen's for some reason. I can never see the one that is on top. In addition to the Facebook group. I don't know what is on top of that. Hang on. Can you just press enter or someone so that way the messages go down and I can see? The public. Oh, now I can. Yes, you will get all the material into your inbox. So you will be sent everything to the email that you registered with for the challenge. And so you get everything now. And then every day I'm also going to send you prompts. Yeah, I know. Actually, let me tell you, for Susan's comment about her husband, I think it was for the first recipe. I told my husband, okay, can you get this and this and this out of the fridge? And he turns around and he's like, is that it? Like, kind of like that. I was like, yes, that's it. And I started doing it and he looks at the plate and I think I started with a zucchini pasta and peanut cream dressing. And he looks at it and he's like, okay. And I promise he ate it and he was like, this is so nice. And actually he didn't finish it. And every day when we do the recipes, I mean, he's like, very skeptical, but we always have leftovers and we're never hungry and it's always really good. So it's going to take some, like, just try it, but it's working. So it's really funny. All right. So we have been on for an hour with a little bit of disruption. I don't want to take your whole evenings or your whole afternoons. So what is going to happen? I'm going to wrap this up. And then in half an hour, you're going to get an email with the link for the replay video. So you can watch that over and over again. And you're going to get the email as well. So don't worry if it's not there straight away. I have to set everything up and send off, but it should be there latest. I'm so excited that you're part of this. You are adorable, all of you. I'm so happy. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for joining the webinar live. That's I had webinars when nobody was here. So I'm really thrilled to have you guys here. And I will see you in the group. And if you have any questions, just tag me in the group. And yeah, watch out for the email that's going to arrive in a second. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.